I'd like to call to order the November 19th, 2019 regular meeting of the Bowling Green Board of Commissioners. Invite you to stand as you choose. Commissioner Beasley Brown will introduce our invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes, I would like to invite Reverend Chris Page from Center Baptist Church to give the invocation. And I've also asked him to give a brief little information about a Thanksgiving basket give out he's doing at his barbershop.
Good evening, everyone. Chris Page, Shake Rack Barbershop, 301 State Street, Bowling Green, Kentucky. This Sunday from 3 to 5 p.m., we were having a turkey dinner. If you like ham, boar's head ham, then you want to be at Shake Rack Barbershop. I know one gentleman that'll be there. And if you like dressing, we will have the best dressing on this side of heaven. So your mama's dressing might be good, but it ain't nothing like this, trust me. So Shake Rack Barbershop, 301 State Street, we will have a dinner on one side, we'll have a turkey donation on the other side. All people are welcome, but we would be most proud if the homeless and the transit type people come down there, because it's not only for our customers, our clients, but it's for those who are less fortunate than others. So let us pray. Our Father, who dwells in heaven, may your name be kept holy, may your kingdom come, may your will be done in Warren County as it is in heaven. Lord, I know they will have discussions today. I know they will have debates today, but let them not be divided. Lord, your kingdom could not stand if it was divided, so I know Warren County could not stand if it was divided. So Lord, I pray that wherever people are hungry, I pray that they find food for them. I pray wherever people are thirsty, that they will find drink for them. I pray where people are homeless, Lord, that they will help them get shelter. I pray if people are going without, Lord, you will help them provide those needs. Lord, I want to thank you for the men and the women who represent Warren County, and I want to thank you for the families that are represented here today, Lord. I pray that you bless us in a timely manner, Lord. I pray that not only will you bless us, but you will bless us so much that we will not be greedy when we desire to bless others. And we ask all this in your merciful Son's name and by the power of the Holy Spirit. And let all those agree say amen.
And as we say the pledge together.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the roll.
Commissioner Denning.
Here.
Commissioner Nash, who is absent. Commissioner Perigin.
Here.
Commissioner Beasley Brown.
Here.
Mayor Wilkerson.
I have an award to present in just a few moments. Here he is. Do you want to go ahead? I want to introduce to you tonight Kentucky League of Cities Deputy Director J.D. Cheney, along with Director of Governmental Affairs Brianna Carroll, who has an award to present tonight.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the Board of Commissioners. I appreciate you letting me come to Bowling Green again on behalf of the Kentucky League of Cities. These trips here never get old. It seems like you always have a legislator that's gotten some award for advocating on behalf of city governments during the previous legislative session. I think this is the third or fourth time we've been here. Is it four? This might be the fourth. This is the fourth time for Senator Mike Wilson. He's one of those legislators that comes up and says, what piece of legislation off your agenda can we do to help cities? He seeks the bill out that would help advance cities. That's how interested he is in helping move our cities forward. He has been a consistent ally with the League's agenda, and therefore the agenda of all the cities, not only Bowling Green. When you go talk to him, he asks how legislation is going to impact the city of Bowling Green and the constituents that you all both serve. And so he's been a tremendous advocate. Last session, he carried another bill to help streamline the preparation of audits and financial statements for city governments here in Kentucky. It was a collaborative effort between the League and the Auditor's Office, and Senator Wilson was able to bring those groups together to hammer out some legislation and correct maybe some misinterpretations that were going on at the Department for Local Government related to the application of that bill. So on behalf of the KLC Board of Directors, which Mayor Wilkerson's part of, we would like to, as voted on by the Board of Directors, to present Senator Mike Wilson with the 2019 Friend of Kentucky Cities Award here in his home city of Bowling Green. So if you'd join me in congratulating him on that honor. And Mayor would let him, protocol, let him talk, and then we'll come up and take a nice little photo.
Talk to,
Yeah.
goodness gracious. Go ahead, Senator.
Well, you never want to give a politician or a former preacher the microphone, you know. The famous last words of those who are lengthy speakers is, in closing, I'd like to say, but I just want to say thank you, and it's always an honor to serve Warren County and Bowling Green and all of our cities as a Kentucky state legislator. That's one of the things that I was told early on by someone who's from around this area, and she told me, she says, never forget you are a Kentucky state legislator. You are working for the whole state of Kentucky, but it's always an honor for me to be able to represent my hometown, and I just want to say thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to invite you to come up here with members of the KLC. Cammie, if you want to come as well. No? Okay. Take a photograph. Yeah, join me over here and we'll. Come on over here, Joe. Thank you.
Also asked, Ashley, would you mind taking a picture of us with Chris? You all can go down. I told him I would take a picture of him, but then I got so excited I forgot to. So Chris, come up here and we're gonna have to take a picture.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you so much.
members of the commission.
I'm so sorry. I told him I
No,
would,
no,
and
that's
I
great.
forgot.
Is this a jail picture or something?
Turn your head, right? All right, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Miss Angie Alexia from Operation Pride has an award tonight as well.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners, senior staff. Thank you for letting me be here to present an award. We give Pride Awards to residential and commercial property owners in Bowling Green and Warren County that have enhanced their businesses or their properties. We think that that is a positive way to demonstrate what it means to enhance our community. And it's a way for us to say thank you. So this month, I would like to have J.D. Hayes and Kim Hayes and Valerie Russell and Haley Kruth come up, and I'll show the slides. Whoops.
Nobody wants to get on camera.
This award is going to a property at 911 College Street, and you all probably are familiar with that building. because it houses, among other things, Spencer's Coffee House. This is a before picture of the property, and that's the after. This is a property that, I mean, I remember those decades, but I don't know, do you know what year that is from? I can't, it looks like it might be the 70s? Yes. Yeah. Anyway, there it is, and there's you can see a lot better just how much of a restoration that was, especially when you bring out the columns. And I just really commend you for doing such an outstanding restoration of one of our prime buildings in downtown Bowling Green, and want to present you with our November 2019 Commercial Pride Award to 911 College Street at J.D. Hayes. Sorry, Hayes. And everybody. There you go. Thank you.
Have any
Do you want to
comments,
say
Ms.
something?
Hayes?
Would you like to say something about this? Because I know there was a lot of interior work. Yes, 20 minutes.
20 minutes,
Yes.
all right. Perfect. No, just a few things. The people behind me, can't go on without thanking them. My wife and my assistant, Valerie, been with me for 3 years, and Haley Cruth, and she just got married, so I got to get used to saying that last name, but she's our community manager for Mint Co-work, which is in the building. We bought the building in May of 2017, and while we knew we wanted to do some renovations in there, we didn't know it would take on the extensive life that it has taken on, and it represents about a $500,000 improvement into downtown Bowling Green just in that building. It was built in the late 1800s and used to house J.C. Penney at one point in time. Once we got going in the building, it kind of told us what it wanted, and it just started really coming to life, and wanted to spark an energy in our building and the downtown area, and I believe we've done that. And with the improvements that the city has made, it's just, you know, a spectacular area now, a piece of real estate. And we have just, these are just pictures of the outside, but I encourage you all to come see the inside as well, because we've done a lot of work in there on all 3 floors. Most recently, the 3rd floor, which is vacant right now. So if you're ever downtown, Monday through Friday during the day, I encourage you to come on up, take the elevator to the 3rd floor, and go out and look at the square and what the city's done out there. And I thank you for the improvements you've made down there. And thanks for the award.
Thank you for your investment. Thank you for your participation in our downtown.
I've been in that Mint work space, and it is just incredible what you all have done. It's really beautiful, and I'm really excited about the way that you have brought the past with the future and really made it really beautiful place to work. So thank you all.
You're welcome to stay for as much of the meeting as you like, but please feel free to leave if you want to. Do we have any other awards or recognitions? Any comments tonight, Mr. Maswell?
A need for a closed session. Hope will read the reason.
Pursuant to KRS 61.810(1)(c) for discussions of proposed litigation on behalf of the city.
So moved.
Second.
Perigin, second by Beasley. Comments or questions? Please call the roll.
Denning. Yes. Perigin.
Yes.
Beasley Brown.
Yes.
Mayor Wilkerson.
Yes. Approval of the minutes of our regular meeting on November 5th, 2019.
Second.
Motion by Denning, second by Beasley Brown. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections? Please call the roll.
Denning.
Yes.
Perigin.
Yes.
Beasley Brown.
Yes.
Wilkerson.
Yes. Municipal Order 2019-197.
Municipal order approving the probationary appointment of Stanley Porter to the position of Trades Worker Senior in the Parks and Recreation Department.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Perigin, second by Beasley Brown. Mr. Mizel?
We had an opening for a senior trades worker or an electrician, really, in the Parks and Rec Department. I'd like to ask Aaron Halsey, our HR director, to come up and make a recommendation for appointment.
Afternoon. This senior trades worker is also known as an electrician. This position became vacant due to a recent resignation. This position is responsible for several different items. In the summer, a lot of maintenance over at Russell Sims Aquatic Center, but a lot of electrical work and other trades throughout the year. The vacancy was advertised through normal recruitment efforts. We only received 4 applications, and that is because one of the requirements is that the candidate be a master electrician. We did interview 2 candidates, and we have selected Stanley Porter. As you can see from the memo, Stanley served in the Navy, and when he left, he went to school to become an electrician. He has been serving in that capacity in a couple of different positions. Currently and most recently has been working in Louisville, but lives much closer to Warren County, so he's grateful for the opportunity to be closer to home, and we're honored to have him join our staff. Stanley, if you would stand, please.
Are there any comments or questions? Call the roll.
Denning.
Yes.
Perigin.
Yes.
Beasley Brown.
Yes.
Wilkerson.
Yes, congratulations. We appreciate it. Municipal Order 2019-198.
Municipal order approving the reappointments of David Souders, Steve Speakman, and Bruce Wilkerson, and appointment of Eric Gill to the Contractors Licensing Board.
So moved.
Second.
Perigin, second by Denning. These are specific designations for the Contractors Licensing Board from different trades. Mr. Lancaster is at the end of his term and is asking not to be reappointed, so they selected Eric Gill, a local roofer, to fill that position. Are there any comments or questions? Please call the roll.
Denning.
Yes.
Perigin.
Yes.
Beasley Brown.
Yes.
Wilkerson.
Yes. Municipal Order 2019-199.
Municipal order approving the appointment of Claire Verse to the Bowling Green Community Tree Advisory Board.
So moved. Second.
Perigin, second by Beasley Brown. Ms. Verst has been involved in the Arbor Day presentations in the past. Her husband also serves on the tree board, and this recommendation comes from the Parks and Rec Department, so we're happy to try to accommodate them. Are there any comments or questions? Please call the roll.
Denning.
Yes.
Perigin.
Yes.
Beasley Brown.
Yes.
Wilkerson.
Yes. Municipal Order 2019-120.
Municipal order approving the reappointments of Joanna Futrell and Barry Pruitt and appointment of Jeffrey Stein to the City of Bowling Green Board of Ethics.
So moved.
Second.
Perigin, second by Denning. Again, 2 are reappointments, and we appreciate their service. Mr. Stein serves on our audit committee, but we will be rotating off in the next couple of months, and inquired about participating, and being both a CPA and an attorney, thought it would be a good opportunity to be on the ethics board, so I'm recommending him. If there are any comments or questions, please call the roll.
Denning.
Yes.
Perigin.
Yes.
Beasley Brown.
Yes.
Wilkerson.
Yes. Municipal Order 2019-201.
Municipal order authorizing and accepting bid number 2020-28 for the Southwest Parkway Connector from Scotty's Contracting and Stone, LLC of Bowling Green, Kentucky, in an amount not to exceed $3,800,000.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Perigin, second by Beasley Brown. Mr. Mizel.
You all are aware, we have been working on the Southwest Parkway Connector. Our Public Works Department has partnered with the state. We have a reimbursement arrangement in place with the Transportation Cabinet. We have completed design work, and we are now ready for construction. The state is promising to cover any and all construction cost, and so we were tasked with going out for bid. We went out and received 2 bids on the construction phase, which is going to include just your basic drainage basins, asphalt, curb and gutter. We're going to do a roundabout, utility relocation, street lights, storm structures, everything involved with this type of project. 2 bids, one from Scotty's, one from Charles DeWeese Construction, and we are going with the lowest bid from Scotty's Contracting Stone of the $2,954,753. We have been allotted up to $3.8 million, so this is a not to exceed bid that we're not to exceed municipal order that we are doing. They are still studying some improvements they can do on the Russellville Road intersection where it's going to connect into Russellville Road, so there are still some costs that are unknown out there that will be probably added on later to this contract. So we are recommending Scotty's Contracting at the $2,954,753, And Greg Meredith is here if you have any questions on this.
Difference between the 2.9 and the 3.8, will those costs have to come back to us?
No, they don't. That, the $3.8 million is the amount of the agreement with the state, should we need that. We think it'll be under that, but we're not sure because we don't know what the requirements are gonna be from the state at that intersection. So anything up to $3.8 million is covered through state funding for this project.
Okay.
To understand, this is the state funding a road into the west end of an expansion into our South Industrial Park. Any comments or questions? Please call the roll.
Denning.
Yes.
Perigin.
Yes.
Beasley Brown.
Yes.
Wilkerson.
Yes. First reading of ordinance BG 2019-51.
Ordinance relating to classification pay schedule. Ordinance amending the classification pay schedule G for general classified employees of the city of Bowling Green for fiscal year 2020.
So moved. Second?
Perigin, second.
Remember at our last meeting, we had two promotions for Chad Dowdy and Nicholas Lawhon. We had a resignation from one of our civil engineers in our engineering division, so we promoted up. That created another opening to promote up, and we are coming to you tonight to amend our pay classification schedule to add an environmental inspector position. This would go in, environmental technician would be entered in at grade 117, and we are moving to eliminate the position in grade 121 that was formerly the environmental technician, and actually the new title is environmental compliance inspector that we are proposing to add to the classification pay schedule. Greg Meredith again has worked on this along with Aaron Holsey in HR, and we feel like this is a better fit. We are in need of more inspections out in the field to make sure that we're in compliance of all of the stormwater requirements that are out there, and felt like this was a good move given that both Chad and Nick have taken on more duties in their new positions. In this new position we are now looking for would take on more of an inspector type role. So we're recommending this change in the pay classification schedule. And again, any questions will go to Greg or Aaron if you have any.
Comments or questions? Call the roll.
Denning.
Yes.
Perigin.
Yes.
Beasley Brown.
Yes.
Wilkerson.
Yes. Municipal Order 2019-202.
Municipal order authorizing and approving amendments to version 10 of the 2020 edition of the Bowling Green Police Policy and Procedures Manual.
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Denning, second by Perigin. Mr. Miles.
This is a revision to our police policy and procedures manual. We sent this out to you early. It's rather lengthy, but there is a very well-written overview of the revisions in your packets, and this overview and revisions cover one or two special order memos that were issued during the year that we're incorporating. There are 4 new policies: school instructor, motor vehicle stops, searches, use of social media, postings, return to communications duty orientation, are 4 of the new policies that have been added. Along with that, there are a number of revised policies that we have addressed in these policies and procedures manual that are going to be revised. And then finally, there is elimination of 2 policies: the volunteer and police services and the volunteer parking enforcement. Again, there's a very good overview in your packets that's maybe 4, 5, 6 pages long, but Deputy Chief Bowles is here tonight to answer any of your questions that you may have, along with Chief Hawkins.
Colonel Penny. Just a quick question. On page 7 of your document, mid-page ride-along program,
Sir?
Say that I want to ride with one of the officers, starting at 11 o'clock at night or whatever time. Can I bring my gun with me?
No, sir.
Does that not need to be in this document? In other words, what I'm getting at, state law says I can carry my gun, seal on me, and I want to ride with one of the officers. Can I have my gun on too?
Sir.
Okay. Where does it say in this document that I can't? And I'm bringing this up because of the new law that just took effect. Anybody can carry a gun wherever they want to.
You don't have to let them.
But you don't, yeah, don't have to. I understand that. But where does it say you don't have to, you can't ride if you got a gun?
When you
I
look
may
at-
be a wild person or something riding, and you don't want me to start shooting people.
I know it's in there somewhere because I read it.
What page is that, please?
It's toward, well, the overview is on page 7. It's one of the last ones.
Page 9 of the document?
What's the number on the section? Or 4.1.0? Okay, yeah, I see it.
It says that participants shall not be allowed to carry any firearm or other weapon, even when otherwise authorized by law, while participating in the ride-along program. Number 3 of the expectations of the participant section. Yes, sir, that's being, yes, in the red underline, that's being added to this policy.
Good deal. I just want to ride.
You can ride anytime you want to, Commissioner.
You have to do a background check, Ted.
Yeah,
I think he'll pass.
I hope.
Here they
Thank
come.
you, Colonel.
Yes, sir.
It
I
wasn't a
also-
trick question, I just didn't see that, and we need to make sure that doesn't happen.
Comments or questions?
I just wanted to thank you for doing this. I know a lot of places would just be okay with their policy manual being out of date and just this, well, we don't do it that way, here's how we do it. And the fact that you all take the time to really thoroughly make sure that this reflects our standard practice and the best practices that we can make sure that our police department adheres to. And so I'm just thankful that you took the time to do that, and I think it shows the professionalism of our police force and the excellence that you all pursue. So thank you for doing that.
Good job, Penny.
Group Pepper.
Good job.
Please call the roll.
Denning. Perigin.
Yes.
Beasley Brown.
Yes.
Wilkerson.
Yes, second reading of ordinance BG 2019-47.
Ordinance.
Mayor, you gonna put it on the floor? I have a statement to make. You wanna go ahead and put it on the floor, or my statement first?
We'll get on the floor and then you can step.
Okay. Mayor, after further review of the planning commission minutes and noting for the record, my daughter testified at the hearing, at the planning and zoning hearing. I believe it raises a conflict of interest for me, and I hereby abstain from further participation and voting on this rezoning. And I will leave the chamber until I'm called back in. No rush.
Sir.
Ordinance rezoning real estate. Ordinance rezoning tracts of land containing 1.1140 acre from RM2 two-family residential to GB general business located at 0, 1024, 1028, and 1032 Kenton Street and 1023, 1027, 1031, and 1033 Greenwood Alley, presently owned by CSR BG Investments LLC, care of Chris Robertson.
So moved.
Motion by Perigin, second by me. The ordinance that is presented tonight is a unanimous recommendation from Planning and Zoning for that rezoning in that area. Are there comments or questions?
A question for our city attorney.
I'm sorry.
I have a question for our city attorney. There seems to be a lot of folks here related to this agenda item, and I know we have 3 ways that we can handle planning and zoning votes at this level. And being as it seems that there's a lot of folks who are concerned about this issue that were not at the public hearings held by the Planning Commission, what would be the procedure for putting on the floor to hold a new hearing?
Okay. As we've said, I guess, in the past several times, there's usually about 3 ways that we can handle rezonings. Probably 99.9% of the time, the city has simply reviewed it based on a record made before the Planning Commission. And that's probably going to be one of the issues tonight, because based upon the fact that it is a consideration based on a record, I have given opinions in the past that no new testimony, no new statements should be made, that people who did not testify, who did not speak before the Planning Commission, should not be adding new stuff here, because we are basing on the record, and other people don't know about it, so they're not here. But that's traditionally what we've done. We've based it on the record. By statutes and by case law, too, there's a couple other ways we can handle this, and probably 4 or 5 times, at least in my memory, we have perhaps tabled the second reading and then postponed it by giving advertisement to the public and everybody else, and we did what we called an argument-type hearing. Normally, in those situations, both parties before the Planning Commission were represented by attorneys. So we'll do an argument-type hearing where the attorneys will come in, they will argue the points on behalf of their clients, and then the City Commission will go forward with the second reading based upon the argument-type hearing there. A third way we can do it, and I can't not recall the last time we did it, if it's, and I've been here a long time, I can't remember the last time we did it, but the City Commission does have the ability to conduct its own brand-new hearing, where you can, again, table it tonight. We'll do public notice to everybody. I think like one in the paper, 7 or 21 days in the paper, 14 days on the property. We'll give property owners who are close by 14 days notice. And then we'll come in and you can conduct your own brand new hearing, which means anybody and everybody can come in and testify if they choose to do that. We have not done that in I don't know how long. That's really an exception for us to do that. One issue with this one is we're running into a real time issue. I think by the calculation I think I got from Ben, I think Ben will confirm, we only have, well, I know the statute. Statute says we only have 90 days to act from the decision of the Planning Commission. From my information, that's going to expire on December the 18th. So to try to conduct a hearing where you're going to be able to get everybody involved together, especially over the holidays and everything else. We get the witnesses together, the City Commission together, the attorney together, or the attorneys together, whatever the case may be, and giving the notice. That's going to be a, is it impossible? No, but that's going to be a tight squeeze to get that done before December the 18th. If this body does not take action prior to December the 18th, then the recommendations of the Planning Commission will become final.
So then I would need to make a motion to table this before we would move to vote on it, correct?
Yes.
So for me personally, I feel like since this is a historical African-American community, this block is very important to our community, particularly to the Black community. I really feel like this is a reason or a particular case that does cause us, I think, an important moment to really consider making sure that our entire community has had a chance to give input when we're about to forever change a historical black neighborhood to a commercial entity. I think this particular situation calls for us to make sure that we do handle that with as much care as possible. So I move to table this vote in order to hold a new public hearing.
A motion table has been made. No other discussion can occur, that it needs a second to move forward. Hearing none, the motion dies for lack of a second. Again, the unanimous recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Group, who followed all of the standards to notify everyone to be there, and we've never had a de novo hearing to start over from scratch. Since I've been here, we don't send out notices for people to come in, but we do have the opportunity for those who spoke at the hearing to come forward and explain the items that they brought forward. They wouldn't be able to talk about anything in addition to that information, add additional data, because our purpose here is to vote on the record that was presented by Planning and Zoning, and it's to explain to the audience just a little bit. Planning and Zoning is I guess really the only item that we deal with that is a on a regular basis is a quasi-judicial situation, which means that when you come before Planning and Zoning, they take testimony by swearing you in, and all of that information is considered on the record. Then we can't go out and talk to you. At that point, you can't come and talk to us and lobby for different things, because it's not a political issue, it's a quasi-judicial issue. And we sit in, I guess, judgment to ensure that due process was followed and that the Planning and Zoning recommendation meets the criteria of the Planning and Zoning ordinance. So the good part is that we don't go out and seek people to find out additional information, because that's not our role. The bad part is we don't go out and seek people to look for information, because that's not our role. We're bound by the record. Again, we can start over, but the reason we have never done that before is that's what we have appointed and hired. They actually get paid to sit in judgment based on the information that's presented at the hearing. Again, it was properly noticed. It wasn't until after it appeared to us for the bigger crowd to come out, but there were some people there that expressed some concerns, and those 4 people, or I guess 5, counting the applicant, would be happy to hear from them summarize the comments that they presented to Planning and Zoning if they chose to do that. If there's any of those people here, I see Keita's here, Ms. Anthony, and Kevin Kirby, and then Mr. Monroe, but his concern was more about the next residence, I guess, where he was going, and Chris Robertson. So I'd present that opportunity for those that were there at the first one. Ms. Anthony, is that right? I'm sorry?
It's hard to hear you all back there when you all were talking, so it's kind of hard to really hear and understand that you all had called our names and everything. I'll just read you all what I have. I would like to say good evening. My name is Deborah Anthony. I reside at the 1000 block of Kitten Street. This evening, as I look back at my life and realize that there has been a lot of changes and enhancements, some welcome and some opposed. The reason for me being here is to speak on behalf of the Kitten Street community. The Blunt family has resided in this neighborhood for 47 years. This is a long time to be able to maintain in one place for this period of time. Has there been struggles? Yes, but the Lord has always allowed our parents to make a way. In the prior meeting, I was under the impression that you understood my vote was to oppose the rezoning of Kenton Street. community. I feel that it would be a disservice to the community. I feel that it will allow or engage in unwelcome activities in the community. There was never any pertinent information to support the information in regards to what the individuals had proposed as far as to help enlighten the community or to be able to make the growth of the community. So that's one of the reasons that I oppose for the rezoning of the situation. And I hope and pray that that you all find in your hearts to search yourselves and realize the fact that's the matter that if the shoe was on your foot and this was in your community, you would think differently. Because I really don't think this is something that our community would want. We have 2 churches there, we have a daycare center there, and then there's a community of people that come together. We all have known each other for years, and once that died out, and then there's others that come to know us. When you live in a community of that, you're used to everybody coming in together and being supportive, and then when other new activities come in, it's just gonna cause a disarray of something that you live for. And it's something that we all have treasured and we love. Just like when you vote, you have that right to make your opinion and the decision. So this is our decision that we stand on of wanting the community to stay as is, because I don't feel that it's gonna help the community. I think it would be a disservice. And that's all that I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anthony. Ms. Clement?
Hello, my name is Keita Clement, and I don't live in the community anymore, but my mother resides there. She resides at 894 East 11th Street. 42 years ago, my dad moved us there, and that's where I grew up. That's my home. I have a home, but that is my home. That's where my mother lives at. And as Miss Anthony was saying, we've watched things, come and go, people come and go. But it has been a community. It's been a community where, for the most part, my mother's been safe. And that's always a concern of mine, her safety. It's a community, it's a neighborhood. Not a business area, but it's a neighborhood that needs more affordable housing. That property would be prime to have affordable housing for people that need affordable housing in this community. And as you know, Bowling Green needs affordable housing. My concern with a business like that coming in is the traffic. It's going to create more traffic flow for that area. And again, it would be something sitting there that really doesn't match what's around it. A church across the street, houses behind it. It doesn't really match what that community is, that neighborhood is. And so I really would ask you all to consider not voting for this to be rezoned to a business district. Thank you.
Anyone else that spoke at that meeting that has comments to add or to summarize? And any more discussion at the bench?
Comments do you have? This is difficult, knowing what the outcome will be. When our community has a vision document called our comprehensive plan that we have put together as citizens, saying these are the vision and the values and the principles that we want to shape our growth together. And I just came back from a training in my job as a Frisky in a local school. And so that's typically social work type of things that I do. And we talked about the need to develop the social and emotional skills of our kids, which is essentially how do you play nice in the sandbox? And, we really are just all big kids. and our community bowling green is our sandbox. And thinking through planning and zoning decisions and how I think we can handle them and the values and principles that should shape them and how sometimes I think we fall short, for me, and you know, there's always that moment you become your parent, and this is going to be one for me because I'm going to use an epic metaphor. For me, this is like when we talk about rezoning land in the middle of a neighborhood where we have our big sandbox and we have the kids who love to build up their sand castles and crash them, and then we have the other kids who like to just play peacefully and build their little Zen circles or their little castles in their little house. And with a little bit of forethought and organization, we can have the kids who want to play and crash and build all they want on one side of the sandbox, and the kids who want to have a little bit more peace and quiet on the other. And we can manage that, and then all the kids will have that restorative time. Some kids need to be more active to feel restored. Some kids need to have a little bit more peace and quiet. And we know in our big sandbox that we have a huge waiting list of kids who need the peaceful side of the sandbox, right? Folks who need that affordable housing, a place to live. We are desperate need of affordable housing. And the other side of the commercial side, there's not a bad side and a good side. All kids are different. We all need different things, right? Commercial businesses. I see tons of open space on 31W, other places that a business like this could go. And yet we are making decisions when we know that there's not enough places on this side of the sandbox for kids to play peacefully, and we want to take a kid who wants to crash and build and put it right in the middle of the kids who want to play peacefully. And I just don't understand why we don't hold ourselves to the same standard we ask our kids to in terms of how we treat each other, how we act respectfully, fairly, thinking about how with just a little forethought that we can, everyone, live in harmony. And for me, I see this lacking in the way that we sometimes handle our planning and zoning decisions. And I'm not saying that about this particular applicant. This looks like a fabulous commercial option. So this is not anything particular with this application. Just in general, I really do think it's important that we think about when we're going to rezone a neighborhood. And a neighborhood like this where, again, it's historical, and once you lose it forever, and we can't get it back. That I think we really do need to think about not just rubber stamping the Planning and Zoning Commission, but really thinking about what values and principles and the comprehensive plan that we have pulled together to make our decisions. So with that, I'm going to explain my reasoning again for my vote based on our comprehensive plan. I'm going to vote to deny the proposed voting amendment based upon the testimony and documents presented in the public hearing and proposed zoning map amendment because it is not consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by its noncompliance with the objectives and action items presented in the staff report as follows. 1, the proposal is not compatible with the area and does not comply with LU-1.1.3. 2, the proposal does not protect the nearby neighborhoods and therefore does not comply with LU-2.5. 3, the proposal does not comply with LU-2.5.2 and HN-1.2 because the proposed infill development is not compatible with the surrounding area. 4, the proposal does not comply with NCR-2.5 or NCR-2.5.3 as the applicant is proposing to demolish the historic homes located on the properties. 5, the proposal does not comply with HN-1 and HN-1.3 because the proposal is not a suitable infill project, nor will it maintain or improve the existing character and pattern of development within the neighborhood, nor strengthen the nearby neighborhoods. 6, the proposal does not comply with HN-2.3 as the applicant plans to demolish the existing historic homes and is not building housing for low to moderate income families. Thank you.
Reminder, since there's been considerable discussion, a yes vote is to support the unanimous recommendation for planning and zoning, and no would not support that recommendation. So please call the roll.
Benning, who is abstaining? Perigin?
Yes.
Beasley Brown?
No.
Wilkerson?
Yes. Passes. That's a second reading. Challenge that decision by going to Warren Circuit Court with whatever other evidence may be available that would consider it not in compliance with our zoning ordinance. Next is second reading of ordinance BG 2019-48.
Ordinance rezoning real estate. Ordinance rezoning 2 tracts of land containing 0.35 acre from RM3 Townhouse Multifamily Residential to RM4 Multifamily Residential located at 0 and 1640 Curd Drive, presently owned by Fritz Real Estate Holdings, LLC.
So moved.
Perigin, second by me. Again, a second reading of a unanimous recommendation from Planning and Zoning. Are there any comments or questions? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Forget Joe. He's visiting with somebody out there. I forgot you, Joe.
Do I have to come back?
I was even ready to
I forgot you.
And where are we now? Okay?
Would you, let's start over
You need
again
to read
with
it again? Okay.
second reading of ordinance BG 2019-48.
Ordinance rezoning real estate. Ordinance rezoning 2 tracts of land containing 0.35 acre from RM3 Townhouse Multifamily Residential to RM4 Multifamily Residential located at 0 and 1640 Curd Drive, presently owned by Fritz Real Estate Holdings, LLC.
So moved.
Perigin, second by me to put it on the floor for another unanimous recommendation from Planning and Zoning. Are there any comments or questions? Please call the roll.
Denning.
Yes.
Perigin.
Yes.
Beasley Brown.
No.
Wilkerson.
Yes. Second reading of ordinance BG 2019-49.
Ordinance rezoning real estate. Ordinance rezoning tracts of land containing 11.24 acres from HB Highway Business in F floodplain to RM4 Multifamily Residential in F floodplain located at 0 Cave Mill Station Boulevard, presently owned by Cave Mill Station LLC with Cave Mill 2 LLC as contract vendee.
So moved.
Motion by Perigin, second by Denning on another unanimous recommendation from Planning and Zoning. Are there any comments or questions? Please call the roll.
Denning.
Yes.
Perigin.
Yes.
Beasley Brown.
Yes.
Wilkerson.
Yes. Second reading of ordinance BG 2019-50.
Ordinance amending Code of Ordinances. Ordinance amending Chapter 15, Business and General Regulations of the City of Bowling Green Code of Ordinances to add Subchapter 15-8, Regulation of Mobile Food Vendors and Push Carts on Public Rights-of-Way, and Chapter 27, Property Code, Subchapter 27-8, Penalties related to mobile food units and push carts.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Perigin, second by Beasley Brown. Are there any comments or questions from the discussion we had last time? Please call the roll.
Denning. Perigin.
Yes.
Beasley Brown.
Yes.
Wilkerson.
Next item we have are public comments, and Ashley's bringing me the list of people who have signed in.
Oh, I'm sorry.
List tonight, Ms. Anthony has spoken, and she's gone. Felicia is gone. Pastor Whitfield is gone. Liz already spoken. Eileen is gone. Keisha, Ms. Townsend, did you have a comment? No, I just now got to you. I had to go down the list of the ones already left, so.
Sure, sure. Now, I don't know if I am allowed to make this comment because I see the instructions on the screen saying it has to be unrelated, and I know zoning always comes up. I wanted to talk generally about zoning. Is that permissible?
It is, but
Okay.
remind you that we have a 3-minute limit on the comments.
I'll be well under that, I'm sure. I'm a proud resident of Bowling Green. I have connections to certain streets. And I appreciate the creation and the purpose of the 2030 Focus Plan. It has some very valuable tenets in there that has been mentioned here And again, I can say that as a resident, I want development that we can all be proud of. And I'll have to say that there are, you know, a lot of unusual circumstances that have happened recently, and you know, I'm always concerned when we're focusing on processes for certain people, but say a contractor puts in, or an applicant puts in last minute information so that the board, the zoning commission, doesn't have adequate time to consider it. I don't think it's fair to the board. The public who, me, I look at all of these things as they're posted, and sometimes that impacts my decision of whether to go or to not to go. And it's really unfair, I think, to the applicant themselves, especially if there's questions raised on the application that impact a variety of things. So I just wanted to speak to process. I appreciate your roles and your work in ensuring fair outcomes for all, and that's what I hope for in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Eaton, I apologize. I didn't call you by the right name. Okay. Laura Harper Knight.
Hi, thanks you all. I would like to speak specifically to the rezoning that was discussed today, but given that this is an open comment period, I would hope that comments can be open and allowed. So what I want to say is to agree with the questions that have been raised about process and the availability for public input in making the zoning decisions. I want to commend Commissioner Beasley Brown for listening to public input and allowing that to have weight in the decisions that are being made here tonight. So thank you for that. I also want to say that it's really striking to me to see the degree to which our community is taking a backseat to business interests. I think that the sense of community is what keeps people in Bowling Green and makes our community special. And I think that that's why people want to live here. And the more that we prioritize development interests over genuine community, the more we lose sight of who we are as a city. And it feels very much so in conflict with the statistics that we know about what's needed in our community to make decisions counter to that. And it also feels as though it is going against the strategic plan that you all have laid out for our community. So that's all. Thank you.
Mayor, can you be, am I on? Can you be specific about what your concerns are? I didn't quite understand what you were saying.
Yes, yeah. I'm really concerned that there were so many folks here tonight that clearly had things to say about the zoning decisions that you all voted on tonight, that we're not able to speak to them. And I understand that that is a point of process that's necessary. Yet it feels to me as though an appropriate process would be to have another open forum for discussion in a city commission space, as the city manager indicated was possible. So I think that that was a solution that seemed to best incorporate the interests of the community in the way that would allow for appropriate democratic process and decision making.
Well, let me see if I understand what you're saying. First of all, if you're talking about the applicant that I had to step out on, if you're talking about that applicant or any other applicant that has applied through planning and zoning for a rezone or to rebuild, whatever the case may be, that's where the process starts. The individuals on that board and the planning and zoning staff make the decision and present it to that board, planning and zoning board, as to whether or not an applicant's project is approved or not approved. When it comes to the city commission, when it comes to us, we have to be very careful in denying something that planning and zoning has approved based on law. We have to have specific reasons within the law to turn an applicant down that has been approved by planning and zoning. As you know, I don't know how many people talked tonight on that particular applicant and our project, but neither commission in any way cuts people off from them not saying what they need to say.
Thank you for clarifying that process, and I think that what I mean to say is that there are a lot of folks that were in this room tonight, a lot of voices that were not heard at the Planning and Zoning Commission as they were making their recommendation. And so I think that it feels appropriate for the City Commission to have an additional open forum and another space to have that conversation rather than denying the applicant that was applying for the zoning request or moving forward without further discussion.
The law also applies that we, the City Commission of the City of Bowling Green, we cannot hear any other individuals that did not testify at the planning and zoning hearing. We can't do it. If you weren't there that night and you didn't testify, as my daughter did, which I left out on, had to by law, we can hear anyone else that did not testify at that hearing.
Yes.
We're breaking the law.
I see that that's the process that we followed tonight, and that was a choice that was made by the City Commission, was to follow that process rather than creating an additional open hearing space, which I think is the path that I would advocate for.
Can do. We can't have every Tom, Dick, and Harry express their opinion about an applicant if they didn't do the same before the Planning and Zoning Commission at that meeting. If we did that, everybody would come in here, those in jail and out of jail, voicing their opinion about something. We can't have that. There's got to be guidelines,
right?
Whether we like them or not. And a lot of times I don't like them.
Right. Perhaps I'm not understanding the conversation that was had prior to the vote on this, where we discussed 3 different potential paths, including tabling the vote. And so can we get a review of that discussion of the 3 different options, either from Dana or the city manager, please?
We'll let you investigate that at another time. The process that you've identified is correct. Mr. Denning has indicated that he doesn't indicate going that direction, so we'll have that. If you want to, we'll send you an email with that information on it. I think you sent us one 4 or 5 years ago. Keep us online, and if you'll leave an email address, then we'll get that to you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I would love to get some more information on the processes that y'all are following, particularly around zoning.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Hope Shannon. Mr. Bailey, you're up. All right, wait till you get the microphone so I can hear you.
My question is this.
Thanks.
What is the process to look at something that's historical? Was that discussed? What is the process? And please explain or clarify, isn't it in the law that you can't change the character of that neighborhood? Isn't that a part of the factors? So please clarify any historical process, the characterization of the neighborhood, and rezoning the neighborhood to something else.
Those are items that are considered at the Planning Commission level when they first consider the item. Over at the staff level, if it's established as a historic neighborhood, those items would come into play. And I think it can be brought in if it's already identified and voted on as a historic neighborhood. Is that one? I don't believe that it is it not, Ben? there's certain, you know, as an attorney, you know what those checkoff blocks you have to get through to claim something as a historic to fall in with the ordinance.
The basic two-part test that is looked at in all rezoning cases, does it meet the future land use map and the category in what it's described, and then is it compatible with the neighborhood? With that second test, there comes a whole host of items in the comprehensive plan. For this particular application, staff identified 21 different items out of the comprehensive plan that apply to the proposed rezoning. The nature of the historic properties was noted in the staff report, so that was part of the consideration and the information that was presented to the Planning Commission, and then, of course, passed forward to this body. And then, in our points to consider, staff even noted that there were the existing historic homes as part of that redevelopment.
So it is considered a historic area?
They were identified as homes that could be placed, considered historic. There's many tests. If you look at the National Register of Historic Places, which is typically what you go to, one of the simple items is it 50 years old or older, and that alone can be. So we identified that they could be historic homes, and that was part of the consideration of the application.
And I guess for clarification, and I don't want to rehash what you guys have already voted on, but compatibility is basically characterization of the neighborhood. Am I wrong about that? Could it be classified as that as well?
It could be one consideration.
One consideration amongst
Would the city commission look at something if it could be classified as historic and take a pause to basically reclassify it as something else?
Understand what you're asking.
If this could possibly be historic, listening to, I apologize, your name?
Ben Peterson.
Mr. Peterson, I'm Carlos.
Good to meet you.
Listen to Mr. Peterson. He's already said this could have been a historic neighborhood. Isn't it also true that the city commissioner has to basically listen and make sure that we're not reclassifying a neighborhood that it could be considered historic? And they would have that information in front of them. So they wouldn't just leave it to Mr. Peterson. They would look at the information themselves.
We would look at the record that was presented to us based on the hearing from Planning and Zoning.
May I ask?
We as a body does not go out and designate what is historic and what is not. That is not the role of the city commission.
Understand that, Mr.
The
Denham?
that role falls to the planners of Bowling Green and Warren County. I wouldn't know a historic house if I saw one. But someone has to designate and name that property historic, and they go through the process in the Planning and Zoning office.
I have two questions then, Mr. Denny. So you're telling me that there has never been a case that a city commissioner has looked at an area and classified that area as historic? None.
I don't know. I have no idea if a city commissioner has done that.
I don't think that's the appropriate characterization. When someone wants to have a neighborhood declared historic, it usually comes from that neighborhood in the form of a petition or some document. It goes to Planning and Zoning for them to review, and then it's brought to us to vote on. We changed that process years ago when the Historic Preservation Board, of which falls under Planning and Zoning, went out and did I will call it a land grab without any consideration from the neighborhood, and just said this whole area is historic, which placed a lot of restrictions that could be within that neighborhood. That doesn't mean that people didn't want it, didn't mean that people didn't. It just was done by the Historic Preservation Board without the elected officials being a part of it. We've changed that process now to where it can't be done unilaterally. It has to be done in conjunction with the neighborhood through Planning and Zoning, and then we vote on it.
Isn't it also fair, though, I guess even listening to what you're saying, that basically they don't want elected officials to look at something like that, but it has been done at some point.
We have voted to accept No, I take that back. We haven't voted on it since I've been up here because they had taken such a big land grab and it had left such a bad taste in people's mouths that they haven't come forward. Now there was a group from one instructor at WKU identified 10 or 11 properties and submitted those properties to be placed on the National Historic Register. Didn't talk to those people who lived in that house, and I have to, as mayor, sign off on that because it comes back to them, and I wouldn't sign off to it until they got the permission of those property owners to be placed on the National Historic Register. But that's the only time I remember us doing it in the 13 years I've been here.
Could I ask just a clarifying question? What's the difference between establishing something like our historic Shake Rag neighborhood versus a property on the National Register of Historic Homes? And how do both of those, does one have more restrictions in terms of zoning than the other?
So there's two types of historic districts. So first you can have individual listings, which is the individual homes or buildings or whatever, and then there's districts. So there's those two distinctions. And then to further confuse it, then we have National Register designations, which can be a district or a structure, and then we have local designations as well. National Register districts do not have local zoning protection. They are designated as National Register of Historic Places. The local designations do have zoning. So you mentioned Shake Rag. Shake Rag District would be one example where it is a National Historic District, but it is not local and does not have the local zoning protection.
So currently, something could be rezoned that's residential to commercial, and it would not be considered just because it's in Shake Rag currently, because there's no local designation of it.
Sure, and I guess I must also say that just because you are designated a National Register does not necessarily afford you the protection that most people think it does anymore either. It is a consideration. It's something that's in goal and objective in the comprehensive plan that the Planning Commission and the decision makers all consider in part of a rezoning, but it does not necessarily give blanket protection against demolition or anything of that nature. So just because you're designated doesn't automatically give you that protection.
And then what would the process be to have a local historic designation for a neighborhood like Shake Rag?
I have not had one since I've been here, so I haven't looked that up, but it's outlined in the zoning ordinance, and it's a lengthy description, but ultimately, as the mayor explained, it goes to the Historic Preservation Board. They will ultimately make a decision, make a recommendation to then this body, and then that would come in the form, may have to go to the Planning Commission first, comes in the form of a overlay zone, which then gives it that zoning protection, which then would protect it from demolition. But there is, still doesn't mean you can't demolish things, but there's a process, a more stringent process. Something has to go through before it can be demolished. So that's it. And as far as, a lot of process discussion about planning and zoning processes, I'll just tell you it is confusing and it is lengthy. And I've sat through hours and hours of trainings and stuff on it just to learn the processes. It is, if anybody's interested, the rezoning, it's KRS 100.211. And if you want some good boring reading, you can read it. If you got any questions, you can call us. We have information on our website too at warrenpc.org that explains some of the process as well. We'll be happy to answer any questions on the process, but it is not easy answers and not something you'll get in 5 minutes tonight. So,
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Peterson. We appreciate that. I'm sorry.
One thing to this discussion. I do want to say how much that the Planning Commission, planning commissioners that hear these rezonings, they're appointed by the county judge and the mayor, and they're carefully selected based on, their status in the community, some knowledge, something triggers their seat in that body to hear all of these things before it gets here. And there's a reason for that. If it came straight here, there would be a perception that we were somehow or another connected to developers and planners and all of these things. And I'm sure that that's why there became a planning commission, even though that's long before my time. But I do have to give, some credit to these people that are really community volunteers. They get paid, what, $100 a meeting? I mean, they're not in it to get paid. They're in it because they love Bowling Green, like we all do, and they care about Bowling Green, and they want to carefully, hear issues from neighborhoods. That's why they send out the notices. That's why people have an opportunity to come in. We just had one on the street I live in for sidewalks. If you want sidewalks or don't want sidewalks, come to this meeting, voice your opinion, and let it be heard, and the majority will definitely be heard. So to have, while I'm not going to say today that I will never vote against a unanimous recommendation from our planning and zoning folks, you never say never, it would be very difficult. There would have to be some pretty extreme extenuating circumstances, since they're the ones to do that, and then for us to judge that what they did was wrong when they're citizens of the community that are really essentially in a volunteer role to get it right, and along with Ben and his staff. So I just want to say that out loud. Never say never. I don't know that could happen, but it would be pretty tough. So I appreciate the time.
I have one additional thing. There are 12 members on the commission, one from each of the little cities. I'll say 4 appointed by the county, 4 appointed by the city, and say that I appoint them, I recommend for appointments, and then this body votes on them, and each of them have received a unanimous recommendation. One of them is a local banker, Greg Gay, who provides as a loan officer. Dean Warren, a local insurance agent whose office is in the historic district on East Main. India Unseld, Wathetta's granddaughter-in-law, and Mary Vitale is a local finance person. So those are the people that we have appointed to represent us on the Planning Commission. Would like to see that focus on the city individuals rather than the little cities, but that's just me. So, any other comments?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
One of the things, Mayor, in the years that I've been here, that I have observed is that citizens don't know what zone they live in. They have no idea whether or not they're living in R2 or R3 or R35. Then, when someone comes and wants to do something in that neighborhood that fall under that guideline, and they start doing something, then they get all upset. Or if they knew what zone they lived in, they could maybe have prepared themselves to know what to do. You don't know where a filling station or a junkyard could be built next to you. If it's zoned for that, then planning and zoning has to okay it, even though that wouldn't happen. The point I'm making is people need to know where they live, what zone they live in, and what can take place in that respective zone.
And just one final reminder that this is really the one unusual thing that City Commission does, in that it's a quasi-judicial function. It's not something we can accept lobbying for or go out and recruit people to come and speak at these items. It's based on the record that's been presented to us. So, all right, thank you. That's the last item on our agenda. Our next scheduled meeting is December 3rd. We've got a closed session to go into, and no vote will be forthcoming on that. So if you would excuse us while we go into closed session.